When your husband pisses you off, don't say nothing. Think before you speak. Because we all know that this is how unending fights start, is when you hear something, you get offended, you want to stick it back to him, and then you guys just keep going on and on. So I have been married for a year, which is not long, y'all, but one thing about the Holy Spirit is he will use every opportunity to teach you. I genuinely believe that marriage is an avenue that God just uses to really disciple his people, because wow, have I learned so much. Okay, so when your husband pisses you off, I don't want you to snap. I don't want you to talk back. I don't want you to get mad and find out how you can get back at him 3 times more. What I want you to do is this. I have a couple of things, okay? This is what I've learned. This is what I'm doing. And it's really, like, literally, like, really helping me, okay? We can actually talk through things and not have to fight through things. And that is so liberating. And because we don't really have time to be fighting, like, for real. Like, every time we fight, I'm like, can we get back to being okay? Because I don't got time for this, you know? So the more you can talk through things and fight less, the better and more beautiful you can enjoy your marriage. I have learned a couple of things, and one of the main ones is this, okay? Offense is the biggest reason for fights. Just think about it. Whenever your husband or your wife says something to you and you get upset, it's probably because something in you got offended by what she said, how she said it, when she said it, and how often she's saying it. And because of whatever one of those reasons are, you are choosing to get offended. I have learned, at least in my marriage and a lot of people that I've talked to, that offense is literally the beginning of a fight. It is the beginning of an altercation, because one of you feels as though the other did something to hurt the other person, or the person feels like they were not considered. All of those things come out of offense. But you know what I've learned about offense? Oftentimes you get offended without even understanding. Usually when you get offended quickly first. And also you get offended with big assumptions about whatever you're offended about, right? So if somebody says, hey, go pick up that rock, right? And you get upset, maybe because of how they talk to you, maybe you feel like they raised their voice at you and they weren't respecting you. Like there was all these things that came to your mind right when they said those words, when maybe that's something that they grew up saying to their siblings, so they didn't know that you would get offended by saying that. That's a very simple example, right? But a lot of times, somebody may do something to you or around you and you feel disrespected. You feel like that was something that was disrespectful, or they didn't consider you in, or they were trying to make you look bad, when really this is something that they're used to doing. It's actually something that they see that is actually more respectful, and they have a completely different light about it than you do. So the biggest thing I have learned is either I'm getting offended or he's getting offended about something, and we just haven't taken the time to understand each other. So one of the biggest shifts I've made, and y'all, I'm not perfect. I'm making every single day and I'm learning. But when I do it, I'm like, dang, that really hit. Is how I ask questions. Anytime my husband says something to me and I feel like, why the heck would he say that to me? Why would he talk to me like that? I used to legit answer like that. Why the heck would you talk to me like that? Who do you think I am? You know those questions you'd be asking, like, why would you say that to me? Am I not your wife to you? Do you even love me? If you are a woman, I know that you know what I'm talking about, okay? I have been working to stop asking questions that way. And instead of saying, why would you talk to me like that? I say, what did you mean by that? Can you explain to me what you meant by that statement or that question? Because now I'm coming from a point of understanding, and it gives him the room and the space to explain himself and explain his perspective. But when I do the other way and I say, why would you talk to me like that? He's immediately going to go on defense mode. And even if he knows he's wrong deep down inside, he's going to try to defend himself. Every single person that is being challenged in a situation, their first instinct, their first humanly instinct is to defend themselves, whether they're wrong or they're right. That's why a lot of people, whenever they get caught in a situation, they tend to first go to lying, right? Because they're trying to defend themselves and their morality in that standpoint. Is that right? No, not at all. I'm not saying that that's right. If your husband, your wife does that, that's not a right thing to do, and they can work on that. But the best thing to do, in my experience and what I have encountered, is to actually just approach situations in a mood of understanding, so the person has space to explain themselves rather than to have to defend themselves. That has been a huge shift in conversations with my husband, in trying to get to a point where we are on the same page, when we are both just trying to understand each other rather than challenging each other on why the heck would you talk to me like that? Right? Because then you get into a whole altercation. You're trying to explain that, hey, I actually love you. Why would you think I'll talk to you like that? And then it's just a whole situation for no reason when all you need to do was understand each other. If you choose not to get offended, I truly believe you can have a fightless marriage. You can have an argument-less marriage if you decide that you're a person that does not get offended. Because what I have found every time we reflect about our conversations or a fight that we had, we often see that, if I didn't get offended by what you said there, we wouldn't have been here right now, right? So offense is the biggest offender when it comes to fights. How do we actually find ourselves in a situation when we're in a fight or in an altercation, and instead of being offended and acting on that offense, how do we actually sit back and listen? Well, James 1 verse 19 says, be quick to listen and slow to speak. Literally do that. When your husband pisses you off and says something that you're like, I cannot believe he married me. I thought he loved me. I'm so dramatic. When you are there and you're like, I can't believe you said that, be slow to speak and quick to listen. Practice not speaking back right away. Practice not reacting right away. Sit there, take a beat, take a moment. If you don't have good words to say, just be quiet. Even let him be like, did you hear me? Or something like just get to the point where you are ready to speak with grace before you speak. All right. And then once you do that, just if you can't even try to say it in a nice way, just say, can you explain that more? Or what did you say? Can you repeat that? That's a great, short, simple way of making him continue and explain where he's coming from. What did you mean by that? What did you say? Can you say it again? Come again? Can you repeat that? Just those kind of simple things that you would say that would make him have to go back and explain. Oftentimes, when you do that, it's going to challenge him to self-reflect real quick about what he said and consider whether or not he wants to say that again. Okay, so you want to give him an opportunity to keep speaking and an opportunity for yourself to listen, right? So that you have more time to then ask questions and gain understanding instead of reacting because you feel like whatever he said was offensive. Another point that the Holy Spirit has really dealt with me here and still dealing with me on is consider that he is right. So obviously there are many types of situations. We all know arguments spark from literally little things to really big things, right? So whenever maybe you're having an altercation or a disagreement about something, I think for me, let me just talk about myself. Okay, this is what I dealt with. I think I got to a point sometimes where I just felt like he was always wrong. And I feel like maybe we all go through this, even in regular fights with our friends, right? Sometimes we just feel like we have the moral standpoint and we're usually right, so therefore the person is wrong, right? And it's funny because the Holy Spirit challenged me and he had me think about when I was dating my husband and how I would look up to him in every situation, right? No matter what was going on, I would always look up to him because my husband, honestly, he's taught me so much. He's like, I always call him my mentor, my pastor, my coach. Like he has taught me so much about life in general that when we were dating, I would always just think about, if he's saying something, he probably means well by it. Let me listen more. I would give him more of that grace. And I feel like when we got married, it kind of slowed down. I would, because I lived with him, I saw him every single day. He kind of became a regular person to me, for lack of better words. And so because of that, it was hard to see him in that light like I used to because I was now living with him every day. And the Holy Spirit really convicted me about that and said, look at the person that you married. You married this person because you look up to this person. You've learned so much from this person and you love this person. This person loves you and you are excited to live life with them. How come now that you are in that space where you are living life with them and you are one with them, and how is it that you see him less than what you used to see him? And I really had to think about that for a second. And I was like, wow, that's really true because I put myself in a position where because I was seeing this person's flaws in and out, like seeing what they do and like day in and day out, I was now changing my perception or my perspective of him when I thought about him, especially when we were in conversations and heated conversations where things were not, where basically we were not in agreement. That was such a big pivotal moment for me because I really understood that I was literally looking at my husband differently. And so therefore in conversation, had less patience towards him because I felt like I already know what he's gonna say. I already know what he's gonna do because I feel like I already knew him, right? And that's wrong because just because you're married to someone doesn't mean you know them already. You're still learning them every single day. So the reason why I said consider that he is probably right or he may be right, it's just that giving the person grace. So even though he said this to me and I felt like that was the most disrespectful thing in the entire world, I can't believe you talked to me that way, right? Consider that what he said was actually in a loving manner. Because one thing I've learned with me and my husband, and I'm sure everybody has this too, is that we grew up in completely different households. We look at things completely differently. We analyze words completely differently. We analyze tones completely differently. Something that we laugh about, well, we don't laugh about what is actually happening, but we laugh about when it's not happening a lot is I feel like the word sure is like whatever. Like whenever I hear people say sure, I feel like growing up when I was in high school, sure was used for like sarcasm, like, yeah, sure, right? It wasn't like sure, like what it actually means, which is like absolutely yes, right? Affirmative. Sure was more like whatever to me. And for him, sure is like yes, absolutely. So whenever I ask a question, he says sure, I'm like, what you mean sure? Like, you know what I mean? And he'll be like, I'm saying sure, like yes. And I'm like, why can't you just say yes, right? So just that right there is something that, guys, this is a real story, okay? Something that has literally cause a lot of friction in different conversations, even if it's small frictions, right? Because it's like, for me, I'm like, why doesn't he just say yes? Why doesn't he just tell me absolutely or yes or awesome? Sure is like whatever to me. So why would he come at me like that? But he's thinking, why is she tripping? I'm literally telling her yes because sure means yes. Sure means absolutely, right? So in these moments, I'm like, God has taught me to think, consider that he is right in this situation in the sense that he is looking at this completely different than what you're looking at it. He's probably not looking at this matter the way that you're looking at it. So consider that he's right in the sense that he has said things in a loving way, but you don't see it that way. And maybe you need to pause right here and seek understanding instead of being offended and upset about what he said without even understanding what he meant by it, understanding where his mind was, and understanding how those words came to be, right? So understanding is such a huge portion of just literally never fighting, because when you give that person grace, say, hey, maybe this person is right in this circumstance, and maybe we're just on complete different pages. Let me open myself up to be able to understand. Freedom comes, right? Because then you're able to talk to the person without clashing with them because you're trying to remain on the same page, on the same team, which goes to my next point, which is you are on the same team. Y'all literally are one, right? So when he pisses you off, know that it's the devil trying to come between you and not him trying to come against you. He married you. Y'all live together. You really think he woke up in the morning thinking, I'm gonna make this girl mad today. I don't want to see her smile. I don't want her to see any sunshine. I don't want her to be upset. Like, do you really think that's genuinely what he woke up thinking? And if you do, then we have a completely different problem, right? But most people in marriage are actually trying to live a peaceful life, right? So we have to challenge ourselves to think. So we have to challenge ourselves to remember and really force ourselves to remember in those moments that we are on the same team. We are not fighting against each other. We're actually fighting the problem together. Ephesians 6:12 says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. The thing about marriage is that the devil hates. We know that because God made marriage. Marriage is a beautiful covenant made between two people and God. And the devil hates that. So anytime you get in marriage, the devil is going to try to make you guys against each other, right? He's going to try and make it seem as though your husband hates you. He don't want to love you like that. Your wife doesn't respect you. She doesn't love you like that. That's the perspective that the devil wants us to believe. So whenever we're in an argument, we have to remind ourselves, this man may be pissing me off right now, but it's the devil trying to use him for us not to have peace in our marriage. We have to have that reality or that realization every single time we're in an argument. If we do not, and we see our spouse as against us, That is how issues start. That is how we built resentment over years and years and years, and never able to really connect and solve issues because we think that the person is secretly against us. Like, it's actually wild, because when the Holy Spirit, going back to the second point, when the Holy Spirit really told me to think about what if he's possibly right? And now connecting to this, which is like being on the same team with them, it's like, oh wow, yeah. Like, I trust myself, right? I trust myself to marry a good man. This man is a good man. My earrings just fell off. Hold on. Okay. Like I was saying, I trusted myself to marry a good man. So I should believe that in situations he has good thoughts about me, right? Because remember, I picked him myself. Nobody forced me into this, right? I thought I was making the best decision ever. So when I'm in these altercations where my mind is telling me everything else, I have to tell my mind what to think. Hey, you chose this person and you have good judgment. This person is a good person and they mean well by you. So this person may be right. Probably do not have the intention that you feel like they have, right? You have to decide in that moment. I am not going to go by my feelings, right? Rationality is important in these situations, because sometimes you will have sometimes your heart will have you to feel like this person is literally evil and wants to come after you because your emotions are making you feel a certain type of way. But remember, you chose this person. The person is a good person. They're a moral person and they love you. And so when they speak to you in a way that makes you feel offended, first try to understand what they were trying to say before you crucify them and you're like, you're terrible. Why would you say that to me, right? Because you probably don't even understand what they're trying to say. Because remember, you picked a good spouse. It was your choice. You made a good judgment and they are a good person. So when they speak to you, give themselves the grace to be right, to the benefit of the doubt that, hey, let me understand what this person is saying before I assume what they are saying. So back to being on the same team. Realizing that it's not about winning, but it's about understanding each other and getting back on the same page is such a game changer. At that level, pride begins to just not be important. Because literally, if it's just about being on the same page and not winning, pride is not something that is considered at that level. You do not mind apologizing. They do not mind apologizing. You guys are literally on the same team and working towards getting on the same page. So you're asking each other questions. You're understanding your perspective and your thoughts or why you think that way. Like, there is no room for pride when you are not trying to win. James 4:6 makes so much sense, which says, God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. It is so important to be humble in your marriage. It is so important to be humble in argument, especially when you feel like you are right, because you may just not be right. And what if it doesn't even matter who is right or wrong? What if what matters more is being on the same page and understanding with your husband? Because we know that Amos 3:3 tells us, can two people walk unless they agree? They cannot, right? So we know that we need to be on the same page about what our directive is when it comes to how we deal with arguments. We need to be resisting pride and focusing and being humble towards each other so that we can get on the same page, agree, and continue to walk together. Because think about it, you may win an argument. Hoorah, good for you. You were right. And y'all are not on the same page and y'all are not agreeing, and you guys are just walking away and away and away from each other until you get to a point where you feel like you don't connect with your husband or your wife anymore because you never chose to humble yourself and get on the same page understanding instead of just being a winner and being happy that you won the argument, right? That comes from pride. And we do not want to be prideful because God resists the proud and he shows favors to the humble. If you didn't take anything from this video, please take this. Offense is the root of most issues and fights in marriage and honestly in every relationship, right? So choose not to be offended. Work towards being a person that does not get offended easily. Work towards being a person that does not speak easily, especially out of anger, but be ready to listen. Be slow to speak and be ready to listen so that in those moments where your husband or your wife says something that pisses you all the way off, your first reaction can be, can you explain that more? Can you explain why you said that to me? Can you repeat that? Please talk to me about what you meant by that. Instead of saying, Who do you think you are? Because that is really going to make a huge shift in your conversations. It's going to make a huge shift in how you guys disagree and argue, because you are going to be able to have conversations rooted in understanding instead of arguments rooted in wanting to be right? And never getting to true understanding. I hope this video was very helpful. Let me know of your thoughts down below in the comment section. You guys, I've only been married for 1 year, but I feel like I have so much to share. I just really feel like leading to talk about this more on my channel. If you enjoy this type of video, please let me know by giving me a big like on this video and also commenting below what are your thoughts. I'd be happy to chat with you. And if you have any other tips and tricks to do whenever your husband pisses you off, please let us know, because we are all trying to grow in healthy and happy marriages led by Christ himself. So please share your wisdom down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching again. And remember, you are successful and your marriage is successful. Yes, even now. Mwah.